Ready to laugh? It's Chris, it's Matt, and it's 6 Wins, funniest person of all time. Brackets, we're gonna reveal the winner for the funniest person of all time. This one, you're a massive comedy fan.
I love it.
And have some very, very strong opinions on your tastes. But so this one, you know, we had feelings on as it played out, and you voted on different matchups, 64 plus, because we had a couple play-ins.
Yeah.
Over 64 comedians, comedy actors, funny people in a bracket, one-on-one matchups to determine the funniest person of all time, voted by you, voted on our social medias. Check us out. But yeah, now it's time to reveal who you thought the funniest person of all time was. Before we're gonna kind of jump right kind of to the Elite 8, but before we do those and find our final four, was there any really interesting upsets, anybody that you really liked that didn't make it far enough?
Yeah, I think so. I think if we're going back, two people that I really wanted to see advance far. One of them I put as my number 1 seed. That was Trey Parker.
Oh.
Trey Parker / Matt Stone.
Yeah.
Got booted in the second round against George Carlin. I thought that was going to be a tough matchup.
Yeah.
For him. You kind of call Matt and Trey as like one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they just created South Park, my favorite show of all time. Team America, one of my favorite comedies of all time. They did Broadway, and they just kind of killed it in every avenue they've gone down.
Yeah.
So I was bummed about that.
Yeah, I know you have one more, but I'm going to agree with you.
Yeah.
But I think you're right, that's a tough matchup. I think Carlin maybe a little underseeded. A lot of times he's thrown up there and close to a Mount Rushmore for people, or at least from a certain time period.
Mm-hmm.
Like him and Richard Pryor are kind of like two very recognizable comedians from around the same time, I would say. So yeah, I figured he was winning in his first round matchup, and I was like, yeah, I just think the nature of Trey and Matt's comedy, which is more or less behind the scenes, unless you're a massive fan and have Basketball, Orgasmo, the things that when they are actually the actors and performers physically, and not just their voice like they do in Team America, South Park, writing for Book of Mormon. I think, just the optics of them comedically doesn't line up with most of the people on this list. They do comedy in a different way, but I think their overall comedy skills probably is a higher level than almost anybody on this list as well. So, tough matchup there. And you said you had one more you were going to go far.
I did have one more. And I knew he wasn't going to go far just because he's not that popular yet, at least. Mark Norman. I talk about him in almost every video we do.
Yeah.
I'm just a huge fan. I listen to his podcast. He's got one with another comedian, Joe List. Tuesdays with Stories. That's my favorite podcast of all time. Just super irreverent. They, weekly, they just get together and talk for an hour and a half. Super funny. Seen him live. Just a huge fan of the guy. And I feel like when you listen to podcasts on a regular basis, your brain does this thing where it tricks you into thinking you know him. And of course I don't. I did meet him after the show one time, but so I pull for the guy, and he's just got a lot of credentials, and I think kind of the sky's the limit for him.
Surprisingly though, I would say, looking at kind of how this went, older comedians, more of the classics did better than newer comedians.
Yeah.
This was not there was not a lot of recency bias here.
Mm-hmm.
It was not, what have you done for me lately? It was if
Yeah.
are you a legend of comedy? I think a lot more credit was given if you were kind of a legend of comedy.
Yeah.
But the one that surprised me, Bill Burr, who's been doing it for a very long time. He was a 1 seed. He did go up against Chris Rock, who again is considered more of a legend. Yeah. But I think their careers, in terms of years they've been active and what they've done in the last 5 to 10 years, it should be equal. And I think Bill Burr is funnier. But Chris Rock is also just more mainstream. He does voices for characters.
Yeah.
Madagascar, I think.
Yeah, Chris Rock definitely has more of that mainstream notoriety with, he stars in a lot of Sandler movies, he starred in a Chris Farley movie, he just kind of Saturday Night Live, I think, gave him a huge boost, even though he wasn't really one of the main players on the show, I felt.
He got slapped by Will Smith, as we all know.
Yeah.
So that's a big boost for you. You either get slapped by Will Smith or you date Taylor Swift, and like your life is set.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, I think Burr, he's really cracking into the mainstream. I think online he's blowing up, but like he's also getting involved in more like movies and TV shows and stuff.
He's in like The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
So he's again maybe a few more years, or you run like a tighter, condensed window, and some of these guys that we're big fans of maybe would go a little bit further. That was the one I was just like, ooh, I mean, but I get it, but that's where I knew like your comedic legend status is going to carry you a bit further.
Yeah.
So, we actually talked about at least one person, speaking of comedic status, we talked about Carlin going over Matt and Trey. Maybe we can start with this Elite Eight matchup. Yeah. George Carlin did advance to the Elite Eight. He even went over Richard Pryor. We got a Carlin Pryor matchup.
Yeah.
And George Carlin was voted for over that one. And he went up against Adam Sandler, who went through an own kind of interesting, I would say sort of similar in terms of popularity comedic guys. Like if you're looking at Sandler, Carell, and Mike Myers, they're not that similar comedically, but they all kind of fill this like goofy white guy role that can do characters and voices. So I almost see them as like a really interesting, three-way who would you pick between them. And Adam Sandler did come out, beat Steve Carell. So we had Sandler versus Carlin. What are your thoughts on this one for our first Final Four guy?
So here's my only thought. It's really, really close between these two. I would go Adam Sandler because I feel like he's checked more comedy boxes. Because if you think comedy, it's an umbrella term. There's different facets of it. There's sketch. There's stand-up, there's writing, there's just blockbuster, there's movie, there's TV. And I feel like Carlin, if you're making a Mount Rushmore of specifically stand-up comedians, he's got to be on there. He just did so many comedy specials, and he was very like profound. I'd say out of everyone on this, in the whole bracket, Carlin was the most like philosopher type comedians, where like he was up there, he made you laugh, but I think towards the end people were coming more for just his like takes on society. But then like Sandler, he was on Saturday Night Live, and then his just movie career since the early 90s. Say what you will about his movies, but like they're silly, they're wacky, they're comedies. I'm going with Sandler. I think he just checks more boxes.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I would also go Sandler because, like we said, comedy is subjective, and times in my life, Adam Sandler was a funnier person.
And when people voted, we put it up to the polls. Who is making it into the Final Four between these two?
Adam Sandler is going on. It was kind of going into like a Jim Carrey. It was not good. But Adam Sandler in our Final Four.
Cool. And then go right on up to the next Elite Eight matchup. I think we're going to have differing opinions on this one.
Here we go. Hold on, before we start, if you have watched before, especially if you ever watched any of the Best Actor bracket, specific matchups, or even as we got to the finals, did he make the finals or just the Final Four?
Final Four.
You made the Final Four.
He got knocked out by Robert De Niro in the Best Actor.
Robin Williams went very far.
Yeah.
In an actor bracket.
Just Best Actor. Yeah.
And Chris made it known that he's not a fan. Robin Williams is here in the Elite Eight again, going up against Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell's
tell me why this should not happen.
Because I think Will Ferrell's just funnier. I get it, comedy's subjective, but we all love Mrs. Doubtfire. We all love Jumanji. Cool. The guy he annoyed me so much. Like, I feel like it wasn't until after he died. And okay, I don't hate Robin Williams. I just think more than anyone in history, after he passed, suddenly everyone was just the biggest Robin Williams fan. Oh my God, he's so, Yeah, he was a sweetheart, very tragic that he passed. I don't want to take anything away from that. Yeah, I just felt like he just went on stage and his bit about like how golf was invented, pretty funny. He pulled off a pretty good Scottish accent. Like I said, I'm not hating on him. I just don't think he belongs in here. And then Will Ferrell, I want to talk about checking boxes. Guy dominated Saturday Night Live for almost a decade, and then he went on a better, I feel like, comedy movie run than like almost anyone. Sandler, Farley, Jim Carrey. Like he just old school Anchorman, Step Brothers, and kind of like everything in between. You just throw Will Ferrell in a comedy, and I feel like it worked for a long time.
That was probably like the hottest comedy film run that I can picture. Like you said, the only other three that maybe come close would be Sandler, Carey, and Farley. Mm-hmm. So you're going Robin Williams because of his being a sweetheart.
Yeah, he's my favorite of all time. No, I'm going Will Ferrell. Come on.
Yeah, I will just say I think what Robin Williams has going for him is a very recognizable and unique persona and cadence through his stand-up and through like any of his comedy. But Robin Williams had a unique rhythm, a unique way of bouncing between, like he's got the Robin Williams style. He does like 5 different accents. Yeah, he's the genie, and then he's a Scottish guy, and then he's like a nurse, and like and it's all telling the same joke, but they're all interacting with each other. And I think that's like very memorable for people. So he's got that. I do think that like because of his success in serious movies and comedy, it's just you lump it all together and you go, I love this guy because he was in some serious movies that were tearjerkers and made me cry, and he's also really funny. And so you just go, he's amazing, and you don't really parse out like, let me compare him as an actor versus other good actors and leave out the comedy. Like that's what we felt in Best Actor. And now I feel like we're not taking out just his comedy and comparing it to comedy, but we're including like his other body where we're like, oh, he's a serious actor too. So like give him credit for that. So this is actually closer to me. I do like Robin Williams, but I really, Will Ferrell, just like that run of movies. Wedding Crashers, even. Wedding Crashers. Wait, was he? Oh, but he wasn't a main role in Wedding Crashers, but he had some weird bit roles in some movies at that time too. I think he was in Starsky and Hutch.
Yeah, the others. The Meatloaf, Mom the Meatloaf.
Yeah, in Wedding Crashers, he was some creepy guy in jail in Starsky and Hutch. I'm gonna go Will Ferrell too.
Okay.
How did this one play out?
Well, it went the other way.
It went Robin.
People voted Robin Williams. Not particularly close either. So now in our final 4, we got Robin Williams versus Adam Sandler. Take it over to the other side. We'll see who was in the other final 4. We had. This is probably the toughest one for me. Jim Carrey versus Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
You want to give your thoughts first?
This is also probably the toughest of the 4 Elite 8 matchups for me. Jim Carrey, like my elementary school and like junior high school, like he was like my favorite. But yeah, I wanted to be Jim Carrey. I thought he was like the best. I impersonated him all the time, all of his things that he said. But then Dave Chappelle, like end of junior high school, when Chappelle Show came out, and that was like comedy for me. Like those were like honestly like the 2 phases of like the most important comedy for me. Were like Jim Carrey kind of years before, and then Dave Chappelle Show. We watched it. I had the DVDs, and I was like, this guy, he's the best. I gotta go Jim Carrey though, if I had to pick. I don't have any reasons that I can explain quickly, so I'll just say I'd go Jim Carrey.
Yeah, well, spoiler alert, if you're a subscriber or if you're new, whatever, we do top 6s. And we're doing a specific top 6 for Jim Carrey movies, but we're also doing top 6 stand-up comedy specials of all time. And this is just a spoiler, a little Easter egg. Dave Chappelle, Killing Them Softly, is my number 1 stand-up special of all time. I watched it, I don't want to say daily, but I couldn't tell you how many times I watched it in high school, to the point where like I had it memorized. I would go Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
And with the voting all settled, this one was really close, but
Dave Chappelle moved on. That could have been a finals for me.
Yeah.
Honestly,
me too.
You know, that's my X-Files Game of Thrones right there.
Absolutely.
All right, we've got one more person to get in the final 4. And this is a matchup between, again, 2 like contemporaries who kind of rolled around together at the same time. Probably, I can't think of anything super specific where they intersected, but I know they were both in Billy Madison.
They were in
small roles.
They were in 2 movies together. And we're talking about Chris Farley and Norm Macdonald.
Yeah.
R.I.P. to both. The first scene they did together was in Billy Madison. They intersected when all the kids' lunches get stolen, and it shows them
Norm's eating.
just giggling and eating all the kids' lunches, like
Who would steal 30 sack lunches? I'll tell you, it's that damn Sasquatch, and then it cuts to them.
Insinuating that they're high, I think. And then Norm Macdonald had a couple of movies. One of them was Dirty Work, and Chris Farley made a cameo in that as a guy who got his nose bitten off by a whore. And they interacted a good amount in that movie too.
Oh my gosh!
And then probably on Saturday Night Live, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Well, let me actually start because I don't want to put a damper on things, and I want to end it on a better note for this matchup. I personally feel that they're both a little bit overrated. And I like them both enough, and I would vote Norm because of the kind of connection I had with him before he got too popular, and now I'm a hipster about it. But now I'm a hipster about it. I'm like, Norm's overrated. But I'll go Norm here. But I was not surprised Farley made it. I was surprised Norm made it this far.
Me too, 100%. In fact, we took him in a 3. I took him in a 3 seed. And I'm like, I want him to be a 3 seed, even though I thought he had no chance of making it into the 2nd, 3rd round. And here he is.
His 2 seed was Eddie Murphy. Because we looked at that, and because we would have known the 2 at that time, and been like, we'll see what his 1st and 2nd round matchups are. But Eddie Murphy's gonna be a tough out for Norm. Probably won't make it past Eddie.
Right. So this one can be like my finals, but I said this about Jim Carrey, Dave Chappelle. So I don't know, man. Farley, he was like the first celebrity death where I cried. I was like obsessed with Farley as a kid. I remember just getting super sad. I didn't even cry for Tupac's death, but cried for Farley's. And Tommy Boy was that's one of my favorite comedies of all time. But then Norm, so I feel like I didn't hop on the Norm train until maybe 2 years prior to his death. I would watch endless videos of like Norm on Conan, just one of the best guests. Him and Bill Burr, I felt like were the best like late night guests, and I feel like Conan played off him really well.
Yeah.
And then just watching his old stand-up specials and just YouTube videos of showing up of like him doing, like you said, like the roast. And
he was on like Celebrity Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Oh yeah.
And I think he I don't know if he won the $1 million, but he went really far, and I think people were like, "Oh, Norm's like really smart." Like,
yeah.
But yeah, so you were explaining why you like both, but you haven't picked who you'd go for.
No, God, Norm. I'm going Norm.
You would go Norm. I thought Farley would win. I also went Norm.
Sorry, Farley. But yeah, when people voted, Norm Macdonald go to the Final Four. He beat Farley.
We act surprised, but we both said we would go for Norm.
Yeah, that's true.
And then they voted for Norm. But like I said, I thought Farley would have won. I thought Farley was probably a shoo-in for the finals.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking this will probably come down to like legend status. But there we go. So our Final Four, Dave Chappelle versus Norm Macdonald. Again, we said they co-starred in Screwed.
I have Screwed in the basement on DVD.
Yes. Yeah. And then Robin Williams versus Adam Sandler. Pretty interesting Final Fours.
Yeah. I'm riding the Norm train. Dave Chappelle is a legend. I'm voting Norm on this one too.
Wow, I would go Chappelle on that side. I think Chappelle has been the bigger star at points of his life.
Definitely.
But guess what? That didn't matter. You guys thought Norm Macdonald was the funnier person, and Norm moved on to the finals over Dave Chappelle.
Macdonald.
And then the other one, Robin Williams, Adam Sandler.
Sandler, no question at all. Come on, people.
This is very close again to me too, because like Robin Williams and Will Ferrell, I think it's close, and I think Robin Williams and Adam Sandler is I think I like Will Ferrell more than both of those two, so I think this one's closer. Because I would, subjectively, as I was picking, I'd have Will Ferrell. So Robin versus Sandler's like, oh, where do I go? I'd probably go Adam Sandler again subjectively, but I actually, I don't know if I want to say this. I don't know if it's true. I think maybe Robin Williams is the better funny person, but I like Adam Sandler more.
That's fair.
Who won?
Robin Williams.
All right, so Chris,
our finals is set.
The finals is set.
Following along for the finals in the funniest person bracket, Norm Macdonald versus Robin Williams. I saw Robin Williams here.
Yeah.
I knew people hated voting against him.
Both three seeds.
Both 3 seeds, yeah. Lesson kind of learned from the best actor bracket when Robin Williams went on the Cinderella run. Here he is in the finals. Went up against Norm Macdonald. I'm just going to say, Norm Macdonald wins for me.
Yeah.
All day, every day.
Well, I've made my feeling. Again, I think I feel similarly about Norm as you do about Robin, where I think like his status has been elevated quite a bit, and that nothing I think for me is like in a level that's like funniest thing of all time, or in like the top couple of things if I had to pick like a list of best stand-up specials or best movies or best bits or best roast performances. I know people love his and think it's like the best one because it's a different kind of comedy, but I love the heinous jokes that make my jaw drop to the floor and to say the most horrible things. So I would go Robin Williams, actually. I would pick Robin Williams to be the funniest person of all time. Between these two, my own funniest person of all time is, of course, Chris Clegent.
Oh, very much. I will put you as mine.
Just put me in the bracket out of it.
Yeah. Have me knocked out of the first round.
Yeah.
Okay, so when the dust settled and all the votes were in, Norm Macdonald, Robin Williams, the winner of the funniest person 6-win bracket was Norm Macdonald. And as we always do, we wrote you a check, Normie. R.I.P.
Big check.
So, pay to the order of Norm. $911.
Yep.
Because he had a series of 9/11 bits. They
Oh.
weren't even really jokes. He would just mention 9/11, and he would say, "You know what won for the worst airline? 9/11 Airlines." And then someone would laugh, and he'd go, "Don't laugh at that. It's a national tragedy." It's kind of set up. So, Norm, congratulations. Rest in peace. Gone too soon. I will say this.
Oh, closing thoughts.
I don't want to say there's an asterisk next to this, but he did get pushed over the edge by a group. Norm Cruise is the name of the Norm Macdonald, I think, kind of fan club on X, and they retweeted 3 of the last polls.
Yeah.
So you got to think, just kind of same with Sopranos, Norm got the extra votes, and that could have put him over the edge. Because without that, I think Robin would have won.
Yeah. Should we do a poll? Just better ? Sopranos versus Norm Macdonald, and try and get both of those groups to retweet it.
I think we should. I think that would be awesome. Yeah.
All right. Start thinking. Start writing your thesis papers for your college universities on which one is better and why: The Sopranos and Norm Macdonald.